Hey guys, welcome back to Chickadee Farm. Yes, my hair is very different today. I'm not sure if I love it, but we're going to live with it for a while. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we are going to be doing fudge, hopefully conquering fudge. But to do that, I want to do it in 3 ways. So the first one is going to be in the microwave using chocolate chips and sweetened condensed milk. The second way will be on the stovetop, but using chocolate chips and marshmallow fluff. That one also does require a temperature. And then the final and most persnickety one of all of them will be the stovetop version, the cooked version, which uses cocoa powder and sugar and milk. So no like stabilizers. So it's much more finicky and can more easily go wrong. This is the one that I've had the most difficulty with. In fact, I don't think I have ever to date made one that actually worked. It either never set and was kind of this syrupy weirdness. I had one that was like super grainy because the sugar had all crystallized. And then last year, I believe it was hard as a rock. So really, really want to get this one right. So hopefully at least one of these will end up with good fudge, but I really want this last one to work. All right, so temperatures. All of the recipes, or most of the recipes that I looked at, call to bring it up to 234 degrees Fahrenheit. And one or two of them said 238, but I'm going to go with 234 because most of them said that. Of course, if you watched my gingerbread video, you know that my isomalt turned brown because I forgot that I was at 5,000 elevation and cooked it 10 degrees too hot. So I don't want to do that because that will result in very hard fudge. So the way that it's recommended to figure out what temperature I need to cook it to is you put your thermometer that you're going to use in boiling water, like actual at a full rolling boil. Take whatever that temperature is and subtract it from 212. And that's how many degrees you need to subtract from 234. So have my pot boiling here with my temperature gauge in it. And we are at 180, 190, 92, 94, 96, 296, 196, sorry, 196. At 196, that means we are 16 degrees below 212. So then 234 minus 16. Hold, please. So we need to bring it up to 218 degrees. Is that right? 218 plus 16, 14, 3, 2, 234. Yes. So we need to go to 218 degrees. So the 16, I think, is a little inflated because I believe that my temperature or my thermometer is actually inaccurate by 4 degrees. I just never remember if it's like it shows 4 degrees lower or 4 degrees higher. So I'm guessing it's 4 degrees lower. So, but this should make it work perfectly. So it doesn't matter where my temperature gauge or if it's accurate or not. Boiling water minus all the math, all the things. So we are going to go to 218. All right, we are going to start with what I hope is going to be the easiest one, which is in the microwave. So let's get started. First things first, I have my 3 pans out. I think maybe this one's a 9-inch, but the other 2 are 8-inch. And we are just going to get some parchment paper in them because this will make it so much easier to get them out. I'm going to fold these so there. Go. All right, and then all of them also call for them to be buttered. I'm just going to use the spray because it's easier. I definitely recommend not skipping this step, especially the parchment paper, because it's really, really difficult to get the fudge out if you don't have that. You're going to start with the microwave version. I believe it's going to be the easiest. All you have to do is put the chocolate chips, the can of milk, and 4 tablespoons of butter into a bowl. Microwave it at 30-second intervals till it's all melted and smooth. Add the vanilla and salt, and then pour it into a pan. So I feel like that should be fairly foolproof. All right, let's get this mixed up. The nice thing about this recipe is that it does use a full can of condensed milk. A lot of times recipes only call for, like 3/4 of a can or 2/3 of a can. And then what do you do with the rest of it? Because sweetened condensed milk isn't something you typically use on a regular basis. And then we need, what did I say? 4 tablespoons of butter. All right, I'm gonna get this guy into the microwave and get it started. Just going to triple, quadruple check. Prepare pan, combine chocolate chips, milk, butter. Oh, 1 minute. See, that's why you triple check. So 1 minute for the first time, and then every 30 seconds, stirring after each time. And then pour it into there, add the vanilla and salt, pour it into the pan. We shall see. All right, this is pretty much all melted except for the butter. So I'm just gonna let the residual heat from the chocolate melt that butter, just stir it in until it's all mixed in. Still got a fairly good chunk of it. I probably should have cubed it up a little bit. All right, I think it's all mixed in. So then we just need to add a teaspoon of vanilla. And it calls for a 1/4 tablespoon of table salt. And I don't have table salt, so I have kosher. And typically, kosher salt has bigger crystals, so it takes up more volume. So I'm going to do just a little under a 1/2 teaspoon. Mix those in, and then we are just going to pour it into the pan. Oh, there's still a little bit of butter in there. Just going to smooth it into the corners here. And then put it in the fridge to let it set. All right, here we go. Number 1, done. Our second recipe is going to be the original fantasy fudge recipe, which was on the back of the Kraft marshmallow fluff jars. And they changed the recipe, I don't know, 5-10 years ago or something. And most people say that the original one was better, and you can get it online from, other random places. So we're going to do the original one. This one does actually have weight measurements, so we are going to use those. We're going to start out with a large saucepan, And I know like this seems like it's kind of overkill, but this has to boil and it really brings up in volume when it boils, and you don't really want to touch it while it's boiling, so you can't like stir it down. So you need to have a big pot for both this one and the next one that we do. All right, so first we need to mix the sugar, butter, and evaporated milk in here. First problem, don't have any evaporated milk, but a very easy substitution is doing a mixture of milk and cream. So for 168 grams of evaporated milk, we need 1.5 ounces of milk and 4.5 ounces of cream. So let's just get that. We need to go grab more cream. All right. So this goes in the pot. And then we need 3/4 of a cup of butter. I'm going to grab a knife and cube this up so it melts a little bit faster. Although this has to boil pretty significantly, so I don't think it'll be an issue. Butter, and then 600 grams of sugar. All right, 601, I think we're okay. We're gonna get this on the stove, bring the mixture to a boil until it registers 234 or whatever I said we are going to 196, something like that. I have it written down. The temperature is 218, not 216. So a lot of the fantasy fudge recipes also actually say that you just boil it for 5 minutes. But boil is kind of a subjective thing for a lot of people. So if you have a thermometer, it's really the most accurate way to do this. But if you don't, you can just boil it for 5 minutes. Just gonna get this mixed in a little bit, and then I'm just gonna let it set here and do its thing. Once this comes up to temperature, we are going to remove it from the heat, stir in the chocolate chips until melted, then add the marshmallow fluff. This recipe actually says you can use mini marshmallows or a 7-ounce jar of marshmallow fluff, which we're going to do. And then mini marshmallow or marshmallows, vanilla extract, stir to incorporate, and put it into the pan. So we just need this to come up to temperature. Because I did not have enough chocolate chips, and because this recipe actually had measurements or weight measurements, I used the chocolate chips for the recipe, our last one, that just called for volume measurements, didn't have any weight. So since this one had weight, I could use block chocolate, but I'm just going to break it up into smaller pieces so it melts faster. We are at temperature. That actually did not take nearly as long as I thought it would. Take this guy out. And get our chocolate in. So So even though this is very similar to the stovetop, the traditional cooked version, the fact that you're using chocolate chips and the marshmallow fluff, it just stabilizes everything significantly, a lot more than the other way that we're going to do, that I'm terrified of. All right, so that looks nicely combined. Let's get the fluff in there. And this is just a 7-ounce jar of fluff, which is very sticky and difficult to get out. And then we need the teaspoon of vanilla extract, maybe a little bit more. And even though this one does not call for it, I am going to add salt. And we'll just do, once again, a little under half teaspoon. Oh, dang it. All right, get this all mixed in. And in the pan it goes. All right, I think I have all the dark bits off the bottom. And we're going to get it into the pan. Oh, there's still some streaks of marshmallow. All right, that's pretty much smoothed itself out. So we can just these last little bits in, and this one will also go in the fridge. Number 2, down. It is time to do it. All right, this recipe actually is the Hershey's recipe. I figure they should know, if anybody should know. And actually, most of the recipes that I found for a cooked fudge are pretty much exactly the same ratios and ingredients. So we are going to start out with sugar, cocoa, and salt in a heavy saucepan. Mix that and then stir in the milk. Cook over medium heat, stirring constantly until the mixture comes to a full boil. Then boil without stirring until the mixture reaches 234. You can also do the water test, which is where you drop a small bit of it into some really cold water and see what shape it ends up in. But I don't really trust that. So we are going to use the thermometer. So then after it comes to temperature, remove from heat, add butter and vanilla. Do not stir. Cool at room temperature to 110. And then beat with a wooden spoon, which all of the recipes say you must use a wooden spoon, until the fudge thickens and just begins to lose some of its gloss. About 7 minutes. My arms are gonna hurt. And then put into a prepared pan and let it cool. Easy, right? You'd think. All right, well, let's get started. No time like the present. And once again, I'm using this really deep pot just to make sure that we have plenty of space. All right, and I already forgot one of the things I was going to do, so I'm going to get a bowl and dump this out. One of the tips I have read quite a few times in looking at these recipes is to butter the sides of your pan, like all the way up to where it might boil up to. Because the thing that you don't want, kind of like when you're making caramel from scratch, is you don't want like a single crystal of sugar gets into the mixture at the wrong time, and it will crystallize everything and it will turn grainy. We don't want that. So I'm just going to wipe this out really quick with a damp paper towel and then do the butter. And the idea is that as the butter melts, if there are any crystals of sugar on the sides, it will melt into the butter and go down into the mixture and not cause it to crystallize. That's the idea. Anyway, I can't recall if I've ever tried this or not, but I'm game for all the tricks. All right, sugar back in. And then we need 2/3 of a cup of cocoa powder. And they, of course, say you can use just regular cocoa powder or you can use their special dark, but I'm just going to use the regular. A little bit of salt, and we're just going to give this a quick little stir. Basically, you're just letting the crystals from the sugar break up the lumps in the cocoa powder. I don't even really know how necessary this is because it's all just going to melt together, but following the recipe, that's what we're doing. All right, and then we stir in the milk. All right, I'm going to get this over on the stove and get this stirred in. All right, here we go. We are at a full rolling boil. And now we are just going to watch the thermometer with an eagle eye. I definitely want to get a digital candy thermometer at some point. Most meat thermometers the temperatures don't read this high. I think they top out at like 180 usually, maybe 200. So you really can't use them for candy making. Okay, I'm gonna call it. Move it over here, just so it has some airflow underneath it. And we're gonna put in our teaspoon of vanilla. This is going to splash up probably. And our 1/4 cup of butter. Yes, 1/4 cup. We are not going to stir it. We're going to just let it sit here like this until it cools down. So, I read reviews for like every recipe I looked at. I looked at the reviews, and let me tell you, they are all over the place. I mean, basically like my experience. Sometimes it's never worked for me. But for other people, sometimes it works great and on their first try, and other people are like, oh, this recipe is terrible. It just went solid or grainy or never set. So it's a very, very common problem, and it's not the recipe's fault. It's not even probably most of the time the person's fault. It's just sugar work is finicky. It's just finicky. Anyway, a couple of the people did mention, though, that cooling it down to 110 was too cool. It was too hard to then start to beat it. So I'm probably going to aim for more like 120, 115-ish, and then we'll beat it. So it's going to take a bit, and we'll come back when it is time to start getting an arm workout. All right, we are just a little below 120, so we are going to go ahead and get started here. And I'm not short. I'm 5'6", so I'm pretty average height, but I'm gonna actually stand on a little stool so I can be above this enough that I get a little more leverage on the pot. So here we go, 7 minutes. So actually this is losing its sheen now. And that's when you're supposed to stop beating it. So you have to get it into the pan really quickly once it happens. So let's get it in the pan. Oh yeah, you have to get it in the pan really quickly. I'm not having a good feeling about this, you guys. I feel like this is setting up way too fast. Yeah, I'm not feeling this. See, it's all like set up already. No. Dang it. Once again, foiled. Well, let's see what we can get. Ooh, it's still pretty warm. It doesn't feel like it got grainy, but I have a feeling it's going to be hard as a rock again. And actually, I did so silly. So one of the reasons I chose this Hershey's recipe was because it specifically had high altitude instructions on it. And one of them, which I wrote right next to my milk measurement here, that I was supposed to increase it to 1 2/3 instead of 1.5 cups of milk. So if this didn't turn out, I have a suspicion that will be the reason why. Okay, well, let's taste it at least. It tastes really good. And it is not grainy, so that's a definite plus. All right, well, time will tell. So I'm going to stick this in the refrigerator, and even in the refrigerator, all 3 of these are going to take many hours to chill completely. So we will come back in the morning, cut into them, and see where we're at. Cross your fingers for me. Sadly, guys, it is as I suspected. Pretty sure. I haven't actually cut into it yet. I have been avoiding it all day long. But pretty sure this one, well, I mean, you can kind of see it's like, it's crumbly and hard. However, I think the other 2 are good, so we are going to cut into those. Well, actually, here, let's do that first, and then I can talk about my next plan. So this one is the one we did first, and as you can see, it's very nice to have the parchment paper on hand to get this out. I did take these out of the refrigerator. You shouldn't keep these in the refrigerator long term because it will really dry them out. And that would be the exact opposite of what we want to do for fudge. So this is the one that uses the sweetened condensed milk and the chocolate chips. So very, very simple. And looks like it turned out lovely. However, very dense. And my guess is it will taste very dense as well. So I'm just gonna cut myself off a little tiny piece because I do not want to be eating a whole bunch of fudge. So I'd say that this is a success if you really want to take like no risks at all with fudge making. All right, this is the second one. So this one we used this cooking on the stovetop method, but we used marshmallow fluff and chocolate chips again. And this one looks like it turned out very nice as well. This has more of the consistency of fudge, of what one would think of fudge as. So cut a little piece of that. And last but not least. Oh, this is so sad. Well, here, I'll try cutting it, but I'm just gonna cut it down the middle because I'm pretty certain that, yeah, it's just crumbly hard. Yeah. It tastes good. I have tasted it. I tasted one of the little crumbles earlier. But yeah. So what I'm actually going to do is on the stovetop right now, I have my pot back and I'm going to just break this up. And I've got about a cup of water and about a half a cup of milk in here. And we're just going to melt this down again and see if we can try again. I have no idea if this will work, but I did a bunch of reading and supposedly it can. Honestly though, I have to say I consider this more of a success than last year, which you couldn't even break it apart like this with your hands. And the year before that, it was super grainy. So at least it's neither of those two things. So we're getting closer, right? I just keep telling myself that. Actually, I do want to do the little quick taste test. So clearly you see the very big difference in color. A lot of that is that this had the marshmallow fluff in it, which is white. But let's try this one first. Basically, it tastes like chocolate ganache, which nothing wrong with chocolate ganache. It's very good, but I don't really consider that fudge. I consider it chocolate ganache. But still good. Again, if you just don't want to risk it at all, try this one. Sorry, I had to take a moment there. I actually have been baking Christmas cookies all day today. Well, all evening, afternoon. And my last batch just came out. All right, so more like chocolate ganache, but very good and easy and kind of foolproof. Marshmallow fluff. This very much has more of a what you would consider a classic fudge flavor and texture, because this also has kind of an odd texture for fudge, but this one is much closer. So, and also fairly foolproof. I mean, yeah, you could definitely overcook it and it would probably get hard, but as long as you're paying attention, this one's pretty easy and a really close facsimile. All right, so let's see how we do here with this little experiment. I will let you know. Actually, I should also mention about this method. This can be used if your fudge goes grainy, if it goes hard like mine, or if it doesn't ever set. Typically, if it doesn't ever set, it means you didn't cook it long enough, it didn't get hot enough. But the other two, it's kind of hard to know. You either cooked it too hot or, you know, the strange crystallization science happened and you were at the wrong end of it. So all you can just do is basically this, remelt it and cook it back down. So yeah, so if you want to try this fudge, there are remedies. you should at least try to remedy. I will only try once, and if it does not work, we'll be done. But it's worth trying at least one time. And to be clear, we are melting it down, and then we're going to bring it all the way back up to temperature, which again for me was 218. And then we'll let it cool to like 115-ish, beat it, and then pour it in the pan. So basically you follow all of the instructions for cooling and beating as you did with the original time you did it. The instructions were also pretty clear that you do want to make sure that it is fully melted again before you bring it up to an actual boil. Not exactly sure why, but pretty much all of them said that. The only thing they weren't super clear on is pretty much all of the recipes I saw when you're first making it, they have you add the butter and the vanilla after it's come up to temperature and while it's cooling. And they say to follow the cooling instructions of your recipe, but they don't say if you should add the butter and vanilla again. I'm not going to, because I feel like if I added more butter, it might just get greasy. But I couldn't find anything that said one way or the other. So I have to ask you guys, who has made fudge that it has worked for consistently? Do you have tricks? Tell me your tricks if you have tricks. I would love to know them. And if you're new here, I'm so glad you joined, and I would love if you would subscribe to my channel and come back and join again for more of our adventures. Some of them are failed adventures, like this one, and some of them are a little more triumphant, but I share them all, so I'd love to have you. The time has come. We are going to cut into the second try of our fudge. It actually looks better. It doesn't look as like crumbly, so maybe that's a good sign. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not holding out much hope. Okay. Well, let's just get in there. Oh no. It is better. Oh, I think this one might have gone grainy. Yeah, but it is definitely still hard. Let's see. Yeah, this one went rainy. The flavor is so good though. Well, you guys, I might just have to give up on old-fashioned fudge and stick with my fantasy fudge that has the marshmallow fluff in it. Oh, what a bummer. But you know what? This is what happens. Sometimes you get amazing results, and sometimes even when you try and try again, you get failed results. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed this time trying out 3 different versions of fudge. And you gotta let me know if you do try old-fashioned fudge, how it went for you, because I would love for somebody else to have an amazing success with it. All right, guys, well, our kids are gonna be here any minute now. They are landing in at the airport right now. David's on his way to pick them up, so we are starting Christmas in just a little bit. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.